Good evening. This meeting is now live and being broadcast and recorded. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of the Borough of Bracknell Forest, Councillor Jenny Penfold.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Council. I'm waiving the requirement of the Council procedure rules requiring councillors to stand when addressing the meeting, so please remain seated. Meeting is being broadcast and recorded. If there are any technical issues, please bear with us. I now declare the meeting open. First item of the agenda is to take any apologies for absence.
Thank you. I've received apologies from Councillors O'Regan, Hayes, Webb and Barnard.
Do we have any other apologies in the room? If you could raise your hand if you know of anyone. No? In that case, Clark, is there anyone joining us online? Please, can those joining remotely turn on their microphones and confirm their attendance when the clerk calls your name?
Thank you. I've got Councillor Eggleston online. Please can you confirm?
Yes, I'm here.
And Councillor Mossam.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. That's everyone at present, Mayor.
Right, thank you. Right. The second item of the agenda is to recommend the approval. Do we have the register somewhere? Attendance. Oh, it's there. Okay, sorry, that's it. Right. Second item is to recommend for approval as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 12th of March 2025. I am happy to move the approval of the minutes, but before I ask Councillor Temperton to second the motion, please can you indicate if you have an issue with the accuracy? Right, nobody in the room. Deputy Mayor, has anyone joining remotely indicated there is an issue?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Temperton, are you happy to second the minutes?
I agree to second the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. As nobody has indicated they have an issue, those are agreed. Item 3, declarations of interest. The full text is set out in item 3 on your agenda sheets. Does any councillor have a disclosable or pecuniary interest or an affected interest to declare? Deputy Mayor, does anyone online have an interest?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now come to item 4, which is the Mayor's announcements. Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final council meeting that I will be chairing as Mayor. On your agenda items, we have a presentation from the Thames Valley Police. This will last for half an hour and we'll then have half an hour for questions. These have been selected from submitted questions at the Whips meeting. I'm sorry there was no time for open questions, but the police will be briefing councillors again on the 11th of June. So any questions you have that haven't been asked, you can ask them then. I have continued my time as Mayor, ably helped by my deputy, Councillor Janet Cochran. As you can see the list on the line, on the screen rather. I'd like to thank you, Janet, for your support this year. It's been quite a busy month and my remaining time in office looks similar. At our citizenship ceremonies, Bracknell continues to welcome new citizens from all over the world. I trust Bracknell will extend the same welcome to our temporary Afghan residents. The Mayor's charity is looking healthy. I will tell you the final total when I give my handover notes at the next meeting. Unfortunately, the golfing day has had to be cancelled because there was not enough people registered, not enough teams registered. Downshire Golf Course requires to know 2 weeks in advance how many teams there are. We were hoping it would provide an opportunity for small businesses to meet, but though they've been circulated, few have responded. I hope that anyone running the Bracknell Marathon will think of sponsoring the Arc too. We now go on to item 5, which is the presentation from the Police and Crime Commissioner and Thames Valley Police. I would like to welcome Chief Constable Jason Hogg, Chief Superintendent Steve Raffield, and Police and Crime Commissioner Matthew Barber to the meeting. We've allocated 30 minutes for your presentation, so if you could please try and keep on time if possible. Would you like to come to the lectern and give your presentation? Thank you.
I'll turn my microphone on so everybody can hear me online. Thank you again for inviting us along. As usual, I'll give a few brief comments to outline before I hand over to the Chief Constable and Chief Superintendent, who will give you the much more interesting operational update about all the exciting things and the good news happening in Bracknell, which is, I know, what people want to hear more. But there are a few important things I want to update on. One of them is the challenge around funding. It's something that obviously you will feel as a local authority as well. And similar to the challenges that you have, the Home Office funding we had in cash terms this year didn't meet our inflationary rise that we had to deal with, alongside all of the additional pressures that face policing. There are some unique funding pressures in the current year and in future years that many other organisations won't need to worry about. For example, digitising tape recordings of historic interviews that need to be kept for archive purposes. That is an expensive business, which is being looked at nationally about how we fund that. It's just one of those unique things that other organisations don't need to worry about that the police do. But we are managing those financial challenges well, and still managing to invest for the future. One of those big investments which is going on is the building of a new forensic science centre. I mention that because it might be something that you haven't seen much of down here, because the building is going on in Oxfordshire, up at Bicester. But I'm really clear that this is a facility for the whole of Thames Valley, and the fact that it's not geographically located in your bit of Berkshire doesn't make it any less important to supporting the investigations carried out by police officers here in Bracknell to make sure that we deliver justice for victims of crime here in your local communities. Increasingly, more and more crimes will have a digital footprint, so that building and the teams working there will provide support not just for your, if you like, your traditional forensics of fingerprints and blood and DNA, but the emerging world of digital forensics, which is one as a large force that Thames Valley is at the leading edge of, and we need to make sure we continue to be. There's a lot of focus always in the public eye about police officer numbers, and I was very pleased that at the start of the last financial year we hit a peak well beyond where we were in 2010, around 700 more officers, more than we'd ever had before in Thames Valley. The reality is, of course, that in that intervening period our population had grown, so we need to continue to grow our police officer numbers just to keep pace with a growing population. Pleased to say that we have secured additional funding for a further 68 neighbourhood officers which will be recruited in this year. You'll have heard me say before ad nauseum, I know people are sick of me saying it, but we've doubled the number of neighbourhood officers in the force previously. The 68 to be recruited now will all be going into neighbourhood. That is really important. There are lots of really other important functions that the police do, and we need officers in all sorts of roles, and some more of that you'll hear about this evening. But neighbourhood is critical in terms of reducing crime and securing public trust. So really determined and grateful for the support of the Chief Constable in delivering that. One of the particular, so just to touch on a couple of areas of neighbourhood crime in particular, where I think we are making some progress and where I hope we can work with you as a local authority. One is around shoplifting. You can't have turned on a television set over the last few months or years without recognising what a challenge that has become nationally. We launched a retail crime strategy just over a year ago. And have seen some big improvements. So one of the key parts of that is making it easier for retailers to report and encouraging them to do so. We were in a situation probably 18 months ago where retailers would say, with some justification, what's the point of reporting it because the police won't do anything? Well, I can guarantee the thing that the police won't do anything about is the stuff that doesn't get reported, and you end up in a downward spiral. And we have really started to break that downward cycle. We provided retailers with a new method of reporting through the DISC system, which doesn't just make it easier for them to report, it also means that they can share intelligence, not just with the police, but with other neighbouring businesses. And I know this is something that's being adopted in the Lexicon. When I've spoken to the management team there, they have definitely seen an improvement both in reporting and the confidence of businesses in what they're seeing, but also the responsiveness of Thames Valley police officers, which is really gratifying. We've got a quarterly meeting now with retailers and some of the shopping centres. The Lexicon, I'm very pleased to say, are a really key partner in that and are very actively involved in supporting the work that's being done in my office and with the police. So we're making some real progress on shoplifting. If you look at the reported crime, shoplifting is going through the roof. That's a good thing because, as I say, it was underreported before, and I know I worried the Chief Constable probably when I said a year or so ago I want those numbers to go up because, frankly, we need to know the scale of what's happening. But the police are rising to that challenge because if you look at the outcomes of that, we've more than doubled the number of charges for shoplifting offences in the last 12 months, and that's outstripped that increase in reporting. So some really good work being done. I think one of the challenges going forward, and it's something that I'm very pleased that the Police and Crime Panel have done some work on, is around antisocial behaviour. There is, I think, antisocial behaviour is often a real challenge for us to tackle because it's the difficult end of policing. Often, the issues that we describe as antisocial behaviour will not be criminal, almost by definition, and so it's not always the police who are the appropriate authority to deal with it. Sometimes it will be the local council, sometimes it will be housing associations, and we need a really good joined-up partnership approach. And I know there is some really good work being done between local policing teams and Bracknell Council, but what I'm really keen to do is try and make sure we've got a consistent approach across the whole of Thames Valley. Because actually, if different councils are approaching antisocial behaviour differently, that means people in different areas are getting a different level of service. We're a long way off cracking it, but I think the ideal that we ought to aim for is one easy way of reporting antisocial behaviour. Because often we know that residents will want to report something and they don't really know whether it's the council or the police they need to talk to. Often it might be both. And actually, our residents just ought to be able to report things, and we should sort that out behind the scenes as to who's going to deal with it going forward. Now, that is a big step forward. There are some real challenges for police in doing that. There are going to be some real challenges for local authorities in sort of meeting that model. But I think it's something that we should aim for collectively in order to benefit our residents. Obviously, I've increased the funding that's available to local authorities through the Community Safety Fund by 15% this year. I hope we can use some of that money over the next 3-year funding cycle to look towards that. And so I'll make sure that from my office, having meetings with your community safety teams to make sure we're looking at what technologies out there that we could look to improve reporting and something that we can make sure that all local authorities are signed up to. I'll hand over now though to the Chief Constable who can do as I say, the much more interesting local update, and I'll come back a bit later to answer any questions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me a moment. I did test this and it did work in terms of plugging in my laptop. There is a presentation. Has everybody seen the presentation in advance? They have. Great. What I'm going to do is, because we've only got half an hour, I'm just going to take out some highlights which I'd like to update you on. And then, sorry, there we are, good. And then, and time for questions. Questions is important, and I appreciate we'll be with you as long as we need to be. But if there isn't time to answer all questions, please, we'd be very keen to either come back or write them down, and we will give you written updates because it's important that you can ask questions of your local police. So my name is Jason Hogg. I'm the Chief Constable of Thames Valley Police, joined by my colleague Steve Raffield, who's the new local command unit commander for Berkshire East. A little bit more about what that means. And in my presentation, I want to cover 4 main issues. 1, people in recruitment. 2, the changes in terms of the structure of the force that are going to impact the whole force, and particularly here in Bracknell. I'll say a few words about overall performance, neighbourhood policing, and then close by talking about contact management, our ability to answer the telephone, which is one of the things people raise with me a lot. But we've only got a short space of time. So, firstly, a little bit about Thames Valley in numbers. We're one of the biggest police forces in the UK. We currently have 9,200 officers and staff, and another 1,500 volunteers who work for us in a variety of roles. And when people come and spend time with us, and I would encourage you, and I have tested out a couple of people already, you should know your neighbourhood teams. If you don't, let me know, and we will reach out to you and come and spend some time with us, either with your neighbourhood team or come out and patrol as a local councillor. And when people do that, they usually say to me 2 things, Jason. They say, 1, DME, policing is really complicated. You do a lot of different things which people don't realise in public. And secondly, you've got brilliant people. And I would encourage you, particularly, get to know your local neighbourhood officers. But I was approached by a journalist at an event like this 2 years ago when I was first appointed by Matthew, who asked me, what keeps you awake at night? And he asked me that recently. He bumped into me at an event, and I said, I remember what I said, recruitment and retention. And we were struggling as an organisation. We had hundreds of vacancies, struggling to attract people to work for the police. The good news, and we have worked really hard at this, we currently have no police officer vacancies across the force. At a local level, there will be some people who are, there will be some vacancies, but they're in our Still Hampstead training site getting trained at the moment. No vacancies. Crucially, no detective vacancies. There's a national crisis of people stepping up to be detective. We're having to turn our detective recruitment off, and we've made real improvements in reducing vacancies in our PCSOs, our contact management centres as well. Still have a few PCSO vacancies, so anybody you know in your local community think would be a good PCSO, please point them in our direction. And that really does make a difference. Matthew's quite right in saying we have more police officers than ever before in Thames Valley Police. That's the good news. The bad news, if you look at the population increases since 2010, in real terms, per population, we have less police officers than we had in 2010, and policing undoubtedly has become more and more complicated. The reality is, by just filling a lot of our vacancies, it make the workloads manageable. And our workforce is very different to what it was certainly 30 years ago when I joined the police. 48% of it seems a very male-dominated organisation, policing. But the reality is, it's certainly in this part of the world very different. 48% of my workforce are women. 45% of all new recruits are female as well. Between 16 and 18 of our new recruits from our Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities. And we work really hard at that and being more diverse than ever before. And we've made our selection harder over and above the national requirement because we're having too many people joining us and leaving really quickly because it is a difficult job. But our recruitment and retention is in a much better space. In terms of moving on then to the force review, and this is quite a significant update I need to update you on. So about 18 months ago, started a review of our force restructures. The driver was finances. We had a £20 million gap in our finances and needed to make some savings. But at the same time, we had 12 local command units, 12 commanders like Steve for me to hold to account, and there was an inconsistency of that approach. So in effect, what we've done, we've restructured the force into 5 local command units. 3 of the 5 have gone live, and the remaining 2 will go live 2 weeks' time. The 7th, is that? What day of the week? 7th of May. The final 2, Berkshire East, Berkshire West. What that will mean at the moment, Bracknell working together in a local unit, that will be split in half. Bracknell will go to under Steve de Berkshire with Slough, and Windsor and Maidenhead as well. So like I've said, the main reason for that fundamentally was around saving money with the driver, but I'm very confident we can make some significant performance improvements by doing that, and it's certainly showing fruit in a number of areas. But it wasn't all about saving money. What it was, we've been able to save money by taking out tiers of management at a senior level to protect people on the front line. We've been able to, with support as well from Matthew, we've been able to double the number of neighbourhood officers on our streets across the whole of the Thames Valley, and more to come with a new 68, which the Home Office have kindly given us. We've been able to put more detectives in our domestic abuse units and child abuse units. We've been able to put more sergeants at the local level. One of the great challenges I have a fully fit workforce. One of the challenges, it is true, police officers are getting younger. Believe it or not, and 35% of my workforce have less than 5 years service now. So I'm having to put more resources at front line to provide help and support as well. So a lot of real positives have come out of the force review. In reality, what the vision is, if crime is rising in the area of Bracknell, East Berkshire, I can hold one person to account, which is Steve Raffield, the Chief Superintendent. If we're not arresting enough criminals and solving enough criminals, there is one person to hold to account. If partnership working is not working at local level, I've got one person to hold to account. Now, already across the force, we are under some pressures like any public sector organisation. But we've had the challenge I've given to the organisation and the senior leaders like Steve is, we're going to make all these changes, but I want you to improve performance whilst you are changing. And anybody who's read a leadership handbook about change, performance tends to go down. The good news is, in the past year in Thames Valley, we've arrested more criminals, we've solved more crime, we've stopped and searched more criminals on the streets, and had some real improvements around knife crime. At a time when the epidemic of knife crime exists around the country, it continues to fall year by year. And of course, we have a really strong approach to stop and search and an intervention capability, particularly when young people are caught with knives, to try to divert them from the criminal justice system. And that is across the whole force, and Steve's going to talk about at a local level. But the vision of the new model is, if there's a particular problem in Bracknell with whatever it might be, burglary, Steve can move resources around and in order to solve that problem. Whereas in the moment, we have our 12 siloed teams, and it is difficult to move people around the organisation. Matthew's talked about neighbourhood policing already, and it really will be the building block in terms of how the force will work. We do a public survey every year, completely independent from the police, private company, which rings people up and says, tell us about what type of washing powder you use, and then what do you think about Thames Valley Police and lots of other things. What the survey is telling us, 7 out of 10 people that were surveyed had seen Thames Valley Police officers more this year than last year, which I was really quite surprised about, but we have worked really hard at this. And 70% in terms of our survey think the police locally doing a good or excellent job, which is double the national average. So we're working really, really hard at this, but we need more visibility in local town centres, because we know that makes a difference in terms of people feel safe. I can bamboozle you with statistics about how low crime is and crime falling. But if people won't believe me saying that. It's how people feel in their local communities and how safe they feel. And neighbourhood policing is essential to that. We're investing in a lot of technology, a neighbourhood app, which is the Home Office have said are looking to see what we can do to potentially roll this out nationally. We've developed this ourselves. I regularly get questions. People say to me, I never see a neighbourhood officer walking near my house. And of course, that person could have walked past them their front window that day and they wouldn't have seen them. But what we have now are neighbourhood officers. They're able to log exactly what they're doing every day, where they're going, and you can see exactly where they're going on an app as well. So more visibility at a local level as well. And finally, I am running out of time before handing over to Steve to talk specifically about Bracknell issues. Contact management. Certainly when I became a Chief Constable, my mailbag was full of letters about the difficulty in getting hold of the police. People, and if we're going to be an effective service, when people ring us, we need to be there. We need to pick the phone up quickly. We need to get there quickly in order to provide help for people at their time of need. Last year, it was taking 7.5 minutes to answer 101. Much better than 111. Anybody who's run 111 looking at the national statistics, but still nowhere near good enough what it needs to be. We've invested in technology. I'm the first force in the world, and we know that from an American company. We work on this. We built a new portal to contact the public, can contact officers directly through an app. Rather than having to ring 101, getting the queue at busy times, just to find out, well, I've lost a bit of paper with who the officer in the case is. Can I have an update on my crime? I promised Matthew that by April this year, that 7.5 minutes will have been down to under 5 minutes, and the performance is better than I would envisage. We're now running at 3.5 minutes. And in reality, I'd love to test it in a forum like this. Let's ring 101 and see how long it takes. And I can tell you it'll be over 1.5 minutes. And we're continuing to get better. And it's not all about answering the phone, but I do think there's something about trust and confidence of being able to contact the police in a way. And like I said, we get there when people need us. And I'll pause there and hand over to Steve to talk specifically about some of the work being done locally, some of the crime figures. But please do ask us any questions about any area that would that's causing you concern. Steve.
Thank you, Chief Constable. I'm just going to get to the relevant bit of the slides. Okay, so I've been introduced already, but Steve Raffield, I'm the new Local Command Unit Chief Superintendent covering Berkshire East. So I've only got about 4 slides covering local issues. This first one relates to some of our crime figures in Bracknell, and you will see I'm not going to cover these off individually, but across Bracknell, some of those key crime types are down in terms of numbers. In the final column, you'll see our solved crime rates. And in the supplementary questions, I note that there's a question around solved crime rates in particular. What I would say is that this is a particular focus area for us. We know we need to solve more crime. This covers both cases that we charge and put to court, and also cases that we call out-of-court cases that we solve out of the court arena. It might be best to go into some more detail of this when we meet in a month or so's time, and I can do some supplementary data gathering around this. But particularly in some areas like residential burglary, where we've seen reductions that I'm going to come onto in later slides. And this is the burglary dwelling. Ignore the 21, 22 to 23 data, because those were the COVID years. But you will see as we came out of that into 23, 24 that the rates did increase back to what they were pre-pandemic. The good news story here in this data is that since then they've come down again, and that's testament to some of the work we do where we focus on specifically some of our burglary repeat offenders who are dealt with by our priority crime teams. Drug dealing, again, a particular concern for us, and again linked to some of the work we want to do around neighbourhood policing and organised crime. I'm not going to go through this in a huge amount of detail, but we do look to target some of our more high-risk drugs lines, county drugs lines, that we know are causing us more harm, specifically linked to serious violence and knife crime as well. So you'll see in some of the results that are touched on here that our focus is on removing some of the organised networks that sit around county drugs lines and drugs lines that are sat more locally, so we can show that we've had an impact. And then we obviously, broader than that, we look at some of the work we do around seizing assets from criminal groups, and we've had some success, you'll see in that first box, and then how we link in with our partners around safeguarding adults who are particularly vulnerable to exploitation as well. And we've touched on this already. This is our work around what we're calling op purchase. This is the retail crime that the Police and Crime Commission has touched on. You'll see from the data there that within Bracknell, our solved crime rates have increased significantly. We've done a lot of work around retail crime within Bracknell with Lexicon, and in particular, actually, other locations, so smaller locations like garages, which have been targeted by particular individuals who we know are repeatedly hitting the same locations. And our approach with this is to very much focus on those individuals causing the most harm and those repeat locations where we know we can have an impact. The reported offences are down. I'm keeping an open mind on that, whether that's a good thing or not. We've heard the PCC say already that we want to sometimes see increases in reporting, but again, we need to understand whether that's retailers losing confidence in our ability to deal with things, or whether we're having an impact and actually reducing the amount of shoplifting. So that's something we've very much got in mind. And then lastly, just a slide on the e-scooters and e-bikes that we've seen cause particular problems, again, around antisocial behaviour within, particularly around Bracknell Town Centre. And you'll see listed there some of the operations that we put in place to reduce some of the nuisance caused by those, and in particular some of the seizures. This is a really challenging area for us. Some of the legislation is tricky, and some of our ability to tackle some of particularly the criminal use of e-scooters and e-bikes can be really challenging, but you'll again see some of the results we've listed there. But again, very happy to take any questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you for that interesting presentation. I would like councillors were actually asked to submit questions beforehand, and I understand you've had sight of these. 30 minutes has been allocated for the questions, and there won't be an opportunity for councillors to ask supplementary questions or any additional ones. I will call on each councillor in turn to ask their questions. So, Councillor Virgo, would you like to start us off, please?
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed, and thank you to the police and their presentation, and always welcome here at Bracknell Forest. There were two questions really I had. One is, we are, as a borough, putting more and more 20-mile-an-hour areas, partly because we're trying to slow traffic, and it is a very big problem. I'm sure it is everywhere in this nation, but it's certainly here in this borough. And I wondered what Thames Valley Police view in policy is on 20 miles an hour, and whether prosecutions would be levied. That's the first question. I think in a general question about speeding, actually. And the second question I asked was something that I heard on the media, which was about driving licences. I wonder what your view was, because a lot of people are saying that Canada has a much better system than we do in the UK, whereby driving licence aren't easily obtainable. They have to go through like a 2-year course or something. It is, quite considerable. And I wonder if ours is now too easy, frankly, for the amount of traffic that people have to endure. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
$20-mile-an-hour. There is some messaging out there that the police don't enforce 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, which is it should be discouraged because such messaging can encourage non-compliance. Obviously, in Oxfordshire particularly, Oxfordshire rolled out 20 miles an hour across the county in many rural locations in particular. Last year, we gave 109 speeding tickets out for breaching 20-mile-an-hour limits. That is very low in comparison to and we give hundreds of thousands on using our cameras. The challenge, there's two challenges. One is around our speed cameras don't work at 20 miles an hour for the fixed cameras. So, and I'm very open about that. So by simply putting a 20-mile-an-hour sign up with a speed camera, that in itself is not going to solve the problem. There is some Department of Transport guidance back from 2013 that gives some advice and guidance about how to use 20-mile-an-hour limits effectively, which is usually what the advice would say is it's looking at the street furniture as well, rather than just putting a sign up. So there is some investment involved. Our team, they're very happy to work with the local authority to to share data about where it will make a difference. I mean, the good news is, we were talking about yesterday, weren't we, Matthew? Deaths and serious injury on the roads in the Thames Valley is at a record low last year and lower than they've ever been on record, despite the increases in traffic on our roads. We have the biggest motorway network of any police forces in the country. And we've done that by putting our resources where the accidents are happening, and the software we have can almost predict where it's going to happen. Where people are killed and injured tends not to be in those 20, 30 mile an hour areas. But there is a real quality of life issue around this, about how people feel in their locations, particularly with antisocial drivers. So we are absolutely committed to doing that. But our resources are going to be prioritised in those areas and those particular roads where we know the accidents are taking place. The good news is, this is raised with me regularly. I've got a proposal I'm taking to Matthew next month around funding a dedicated team focusing on particular rural locations where there's 20 mile an hour limits. I went out with patrol with our traffic department on an operation recently, and the plan was we're going to hit those rural locations, 20 mile an hour zones, with a speed camera by the roadside, which does work at 20 miles an hour, and then we were we were deployed to deal with criminality on the motorway network, and that is happening quite a lot. The vision I have is having a dedicated team, a taskable resource that can say, we're going to come to your location in Bracknell and we will turn up and we will do some enforcement for a specific period, and that's when I will work through if we can fund that. And I think we can fund it by the success we're having about seizing cars from criminals and selling them at auction. Hopefully that can help pay for this dedicated resource, which I think will make a difference.
Thank you. I'll try not to repeat anything that Chief Constable said, but I largely agree. I think there's an issue around expectation management, a little bit around residents. So because you as a local authority set the speed limits and the police, as the police, enforce them, there's a mismatch. Frankly, you can set whatever limits you think is right. That's part of the democratic process to be responsive to what the public expect. But of course, that doesn't come with additional resource for the police to do enforcement. And I always say to people, if you had a road that was previously 30 miles an hour, and then the limit goes down to 20, somehow in people's minds they think there's suddenly going to be some more enforcement because of the change of limit. What level of enforcement was there when it was 30? Now, if you regularly had a speed camera van in a 30 mile an hour location, it went down to 20, then yes, I think it's reasonable to expect that there will be some continued enforcement. But actually, if over the last 20 or 30 years you've not needed any speed enforcement in your local 30 mile an hour area, and then the council lowers the limit, we're not suddenly going to have resource to enforce in those areas. Where I think there is a helpful support through my office, we support Community Speed Watch. So anybody who wants to do Community Speed Watch can get the equipment for free now. That's useful in terms of having an educational benefit, albeit not enforcement. But what it also does is demonstrate real data, because we know some of the challenges around speeding are around perception rather than the reality of what the risk is. And as the Chief Constable said, we need to make sure that we prioritise police resources where there is risk. But actually, if there's an area where people feel there is a real issue, then volunteers through Community Speed Watch can actually be measuring that, as well as doing some education. They're then providing real live data to policing, and if that's justified, then that can be escalated to better police enforcement.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, would you like... No, it was no supplementary, sorry.
Sorry, it was part of it. I'm not aware specifically of the Canadian stuff. I have heard of there are some people in this country who advocate graduated driving licences. So below a certain age, you wouldn't be able to carry passengers, etc. I think whilst we clearly will want to prioritise safety on our roads, we also need to think about wider practicalities and economic impacts. I think I would argue that now that we've got a theory test, which a lot of people in this room probably will have got a driving licence before that was in place, there's an argument that actually the standards should be higher than they were when others who were still on the roads took their driving tests. I think the graduated driving licences, I can see why they're attractive, and I know that there's people who've lost loved ones in Thames Valley who are strong advocates of this. There's a challenge around enforcement of that. It sounds great to say if you're below 21, you can't carry passengers. how a traffic officer is supposed to identify somebody who's driving past them to tell at a distance whether a driver is 19, 20 or 25 is going to be a bit of a challenge when they're travelling at speed. Now, you hope that if that was a rule, people would abide by it, and if there's an incident, then there clearly is a higher sanction. But I think we always need to think about how the police would have to enforce this if we do want to change the rules.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, would you like to ask the first of your two questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Matt, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Commander, for being here tonight. I've got two questions like Tony. We understand that our police area is undergoing a restructuring in May. It's changing from being called a local police area to a local command unit. Our current police area will drop Wokingham and gain Maidenhead and Slough, and it will be called East Berkshire LCU. So how will it affect Bracknell Forest? How thin is the thin blue line? Question one. Question two, can the police let us know, please, what is being done to decarbonise the service and give assurance that they have plans to future-proof the service against climate change, as Royal Berks Fire and Rescue Service is doing currently? Thank you.
Yes, well, I'm going to bring in Steve, really, but fundamentally, if the change is managed correctly, you should see, the public who live in Bracknell should see absolutely no change whatsoever, other than seeing more police officers on the streets and improve performance. But Steve, do you want to talk about the structures and at the local level, how it may impact?
Yeah, so we've covered a bit of this already, but I will be the commander for the Berkshire East area. So I will have Bracknell, Windsor Maidenhead and Slough. And I've been running with Slough and Windsor Maidenhead for a while, so Bracknell is coming in to join us. So in many respects, we're already up and running with a lot of our processes, and all we need to do in a couple of weeks' time is join Bracknell into that. Now, there are a couple of big advantages to this as I see them. One, as the Chief Constable has already said, I have overall accountability for the performance and some of the issues that Bracknell may suffer. So we'll have a good understanding of Bracknell issues. The other is specifically around performance, so I'll be accountable for performance. So some of the solved crime rates that I'll be accountable for, and my plan to bring those up to where they need to be or drive crime rates down. The last one is one we touched on already, which is that ability to quickly deploy resources in to deal with specific problems. So I'll have the ability through my structures to move resources to deal with crime issues, to deal with antisocial behaviour issues, or say, for example, to put a policing operation into Bracknell Town Centre to deal with a retail crime problem. So there are some significant advantages in my view, although I'm slightly biased because I'm the commander, but I think there are some real advantages to that LCU model for consistency. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that one.
And if I pick up the second one about decarbonising, I think there are several aspects to this. There are some of the relatively easy wins about looking at our estate. That's one of the big areas, and we have, for example, in the new build where we're doing that. Take the Bicester Forensic Centre that I talked about, for example, is going to be a fantastically environmentally friendly building by comparison with anything that we've had before, because that's being built in at the earliest stage in terms of the design, and we're constantly reviewing the estate, partly because we have a lot of estate and we need to make sure it's kept up to date. So we're always looking at opportunities through that when we're refurbishing buildings, etc. Firstly, do we need the building? Can we simply slim our estate? But also when we're putting refurbishments in place, how can we make those buildings more efficient? Because frankly, we want to save money on running the buildings as well. The vehicle fleet is probably the next stage. Now that's more challenging because for two reasons. Firstly, the operational requirements of police vehicles they're not unique. But they are different. You will still need some high-performance vehicles for roads policing. We need to think about the charging infrastructure. That's proving particularly challenging around making sure that we've got the estate to run a 24/7 fleet But there is definitely work going on around that. The timescale for us as a territorial police force to get to or sort of all electric or mostly electric vehicles is different from other parts of the public sector. But we are definitely moving in that direction. There are now more and more vehicles which are on the frameworks for us to procure, and we have a few of those vehicles in service already being used effectively to trial it, particularly unmarked vehicles that might be used for internal fleet. But also, I think we need to look at how we prepare the organisation for the potentially the challenges of more extreme weather, and that's certainly an area that obviously you reference RBFRS. That's certainly a challenge that they have, and something that we work with our fire colleagues to look at about, well, where are we placing our police stations, what equipment have we got, etc. But there is a trade-off and a challenge. So there's a scheme in the north of Thames Valley where we're being asked to join into a centralised heat network. And at the moment, those numbers stack up as if it's going to cost us around £2 million more if we were to go down that route. We can't afford that, and so I'm saying no. I'm sorry, because which police officers would you like me to ask the Chief Constable to take off the streets if you want us to choose that different option? So the priority for me as Police and Crime Commissioner is about cutting crime and catching more criminals and making sure the police have got the equipment to do that. If along the way we can make the organisation more environmentally friendly, then of course we will. But the priority is going to remain cutting crime.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first, I'd like to say well done in terms of the recruitment, because I know it was a long-standing target of yours, Mr. Barber, to get a lot more police on the beat, and to see that succeeding is great. It's also good to hear that there's a more diverse workforce being encouraged to come on. However, everything's not perfect, and there was an employment tribunal in August 2024 that ruled that 3 white police officers were passed over for promotion on the basis of their race in favour of an ethnic minority candidate. So this led to a review, and I'm sure you've taken on board the findings of that review, that these sort of critical race theory ideas are created a divided workforce and set people against each other. So I'd like to know, how is that going, and what are you doing to tackle that particular divisive issue?
So I agree. I think it can be a particularly divisive issue. The review you refer to is the review I commissioned on it. So I think that's the first thing. What have we done? Commission an independent review, and it's a long document for anybody who does want to read it. It's on the website, but it's I think an interesting and important read. And there's about 50 recommendations that come out of that. Now I think we should be really clear, as I have from the start. I don't think, and the review didn't find there was any, if you like, malign intent. What's happened within the organisation is exactly that intent to try and develop a more diverse workforce, which I think everybody would support. However, the force got it wrong on this occasion, and there are a lot of those recommendations that have already been implemented, I'm pleased to say, and I will continue to work with the Chief Constable to make sure we work through those and make sure that all of the findings from that review are taken on board. So yes, I've been very frank from the start, the force got it wrong, but that's why we've done a review, and I think we need to face up to those challenges, and I think we've got a really clear roadmap about how we manage that. For me, very clear. So those political, and they are political ideas of critical race theory, etc. Policing needs to be apolitical, and so having that as part of it is not appropriate. But working within existing employment legislation, we have succeeded in getting a much more diverse workforce, and I think that is good. Stabilising that and making sure we've got confidence throughout the organisation, both the public and officers and staff in the organisation, is really important going forward. Do you want to add?
I suppose just a couple of things. The issue was quite nuanced, and white officers weren't passed over for promotion, but unfortunately it was quite complicated, and we expected to win that tribunal, but we will learn from that and we will move on. Certainly, Chief Constable will be completely unapologetic in trying to make TVP more representative of the communities that we serve. Of course, we need to follow the law, and we'll always do try that. I was speaking to my father-in-law at the weekend, and he said to me, "Can I ask you a question about two-tier policing? I've read about it in the newspapers, and there is a narrative, isn't there, sometimes in the press and on social media about how we've used our powers. I don't recognise that in any way of any of our officers. Certainly, we are completely apolitical, and we will enforce the law fairly and with integrity. And what I suggest is, if you hear that narrative, like I said at the beginning, go and spend time with officers from Thames Valley Police and make your own minds up rather than what you might hear, certainly on some of the narratives on social media."
Right, thank you. Councillor Eberle, please. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm happy to confirm to the Chief Superintendent that I took the police up on the offer to do a ride-along and was really very helpful and illustrative. Thanks for that opportunity and thanks for your good work. The question which I have is, from Thames Valley Police's perspective, what has been and is the impact of the serious backlog of criminal cases awaiting a court hearing?
I'll start. So I think it is a real concern. I think it has differing impacts in different parts of the system. I think the most worrying and concerning is probably around those really serious cases of sexual offences and rape, where we know getting victims to stick with what is already a long and combative process all the way through to a trial is difficult at the best of times. And then if once you get a charge from the CPS, you have to wait 2.5 years to get your day in court, can you blame victims if they don't support that process? Now, there are some ways of trying to mitigate that, of getting evidence in advance, so they don't necessarily have to give evidence in court, but there are some real problems in there for victims and delivering justice. That said, the problems are much more throughout other bits of the criminal justice process. I think it's fair to say, even at the height of some of the challenges around the prison places problems that we've got, and that hasn't gone away, and that is linked with the court backlogs. There's never a view, certainly in Thames Valley, where police officers shouldn't be arresting people because of the knock-on effect. So from the policing element at the front end, if you like, all the delays are beyond there, but we'd be naive to think it doesn't have an impact on victims and the ability to get cases heard. Of course, you've got other offenders who will be still out there committing other offences when they should be locked up because they should have gone to court. And within our prison system, if you take Bullingdon Prison, for example, in Oxford, so our biggest prison in Thames Valley, that prison was designed to accommodate prisoners who are at the end of their sentence and eventually going to be resettled, people probably in the last 5 years of their sentence. It wasn't ever designed for remand prisoners. The last time I spoke to the governor, I think about 70% of the men who are in Bullingdon Prison are on remand. That's the impact it has on filling places of people who haven't actually been found guilty of an offence yet, but they are clogging up the system because they're waiting for their day in court. So that's probably one of those unseen contributions to the prison crisis because people haven't been through court.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. I could talk about this all evening. I've shared my views with the Home Office regarding this, and I've said I'd rather not have any more police officers. I have enough. I would rather all the efforts into reforming the criminal justice system, which is in crisis, particularly the Crown Court, the backlog at the moment. I was talking to the resident judge in Reading just last week about this issue. Certainly, the Thames Valley, it's at least 2 years, 2 to 2.5 years. If you committed a crime today, which goes to Crown Court, the advice from defence solicitors is for those either way offences, which most offences are, go to Crown Court. Therefore, you've got this long delay, and by the time you get there in 2 years' time, if that person hasn't convicted any further offending, they're not getting any sentence or very limited sentence at court. Every bit of the process is frustrated by this, but the real impact is around victim attrition. The CPS, they haven't given me permission to share the information with you. The good news is our victim attrition is better than the national average, but I spent time in our witness care units, and it's taking a long time for cases to be charged. And in Crown Court, you're waiting 2 years, at least 2 to 2.5 years. And therefore, obviously, if you're a witness, and particularly if you're a domestic abuse victim, if you're a rape victim, we try to get those cases on earlier. But there is such a backlog, and people are losing confidence in the criminal justice system. But another issue we're having, and it was a local example. Another officer was run over on that e-bike, and he nearly lost his leg. And he was off work a long time. We charged that. The offender went to custody. By the time he went to court, because of the time spent on remand and the early release programme, he was just released out of prison straight after the court case. So it's affecting overall confidence, and undoubtedly this will be impacting the confidence of people to come forward to report crime, give statements. So there is a crisis here in the criminal justice system, and the current government accept that. There's a lot of work to be done. But the vision I would have, if I could ask for anything, we need to make sure the justice system is quick. If somebody commits antisocial behaviour on the streets of Bracknell today, we need to deal with it decisively, and there is a consequence of that very, very quickly. And at the moment, we haven't got that, certainly in the Crown Court, because of the backlogs. So a real challenging area for us, but we're only one partner in that system.
Right, thank you.
Thank you both.
That gives us all quite a lot of food for thought, really. Councillor M. Forster, please. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. TVP have come under criticism from the Inspectorate of Constabulary previously for failing to record all crimes reported to you. This undermined public confidence in the police. Can you reassure us now that the criminal figures are not underreported?
I can very clearly answer that question. So back in 2017, we were given an adequate grading for recording our crime. Since then, we put a new system in place. We crime at the front end. If you ring 999 101, the first thing the call handler does is record a crime. It makes us completely compliant, which is great. And when we were last inspected, in fact, the inspectorate no longer on the annual inspections look at that specifically for TVP, because we were 0.2% away from outstanding in terms of our grading. That's the good news. The bad news is this: we're over recording crime by at least 11%. So, we've looked at 18 forces, and we are over-recording more crime than other forces. Actually, it's the other way around. Our crime figures are not accurate because we're over-recording. We've moved in the last 2 years from bottom quartile for solving crime in the country to second quartile. If we could fix our problem by over-recording, we'd be top quartile in terms of the numbers of crimes we're solving. The problem is, it's really hard to do. To make that tweak in this really complicated system in order to make sure we're compliant but not creating additional bureaucracy. At the moment, officers, and Steve's officers tell me all the time, the amount of bureaucracy we have in place to having to try to cancel some of this crime that we're over-recording. So I can absolutely assure you, if you want to know what's really happening in your local area, I would encourage you to look at the Crime Survey of England and Wales, which is independent. Police crime figures are fraught with danger, and I say that as a chief constable, because the rules on recording rules change quite regularly, and it's difficult to compare apples with apples and pears with pears. But I can absolutely reassure you, we are definitely over-recording crime, not under-recording crime, and it's one of these really tricky issues I'm trying to solve at the moment.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Diabole, please. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, and also I would like to thank the police for the ride-along. I did one as well, and I think it is very helpful for councillors to see how they manage tricky situations on their own, because they're literally out on their own. So the question is, the solved crime rates on page 27 of your presentation look worryingly low. How do these rates compare then to the national average of the police forces, please?
If I start, and Steve or Matthew, you may wish to come in, I've kind of just covered that a little bit. When I became Chief Constable, we were 41 out of 43 forces in our solved crime rate. It is a difficult. I mean, I've shared with the inspector. I don't like that. I don't like that measure, because it depends on how compliant you are in solving crime in the first place. and comparing offending here, which is such a big police force area, right? We touch London, we almost touch Birmingham, we've got a big transport network. Comparing us with a very rural location somewhere in Wales, it's difficult to compare. We're currently 18th out of 43, so we're just in second quartile, but getting better all the time. But the reason why I don't like the measure, Matthew, as he's mentioned already, keeps on going out and encouraging people to report more crime. And I can understand from a public perspective why we would want to do that. But the risk is it's skewing our figures because of the extra recording. But like I said, we are arresting more people, we're charging more offenders, we're solving more crime. In fact, every one of our response teams, you will have gone out with a response team, every one of the 66 response teams have solved more crime in the last year. But if you could speak to any of our local officers and say what's most important, and for me, solving more crime is our number one priority at the moment. So we've made some good progress, but a lot more to do.
Go on. You go, Steve.
I mean, just to reinforce that, I mean, that's part of my reason for being, I guess, is to be in place to monitor exactly what you're talking about, that performance. We're putting a lot of effort into solving more crime. There are some real complications, especially in relation to charging more people, but there are different ways of doing it. And we've talked about some of the difficulties with the criminal justice system. But taking domestic abuse as a particular category is something we're putting a lot of focus into, but sometimes very difficult to solve because of some of the difficulties with evidence and keeping victims on board, and some of our internal criminal justice processes. We've got to get cases through the system quickly and stop victims disengaging. So we know the challenges, we're up for them, and as the Chief Constable said, we are making good ground with this as a force.
Just a couple of thoughts on it, because I think this is one of those areas that instinctively we want to see a high number. It looks and feels good, and it is important. However, I think there's a few things we need to remember. Firstly, there was no halcyon day when 100% of crimes were all solved. And I think what's interesting is, one, the recording methodology that's already been mentioned, that makes it difficult to compare like for like over time. But I think if you went back 30, 40 years to when apparently the world was wonderful, just like in 40 years' time, everybody's going to think that things were wonderful now. I don't think you would see things that were radically different if you recorded on the same basis. But actually, although it's really important for me, and from an operational perspective, making sure that those officers who are out there on the ground are solving crime is clearly an imperative. For me, the most important thing is preventing crime. Cutting crime in absolute terms. And I think burglary is a really good example of this. So often, sadly, burglary will come in a string of offences. So if you take the hypothetical where there are 10 properties that are burgled over a week-long period in a local area, it may well be that when the police arrest someone, there's enough evidence to charge them with 3 of those burglaries because some CCTV, there's forensics in 3 of those cases. Now, I can't prove that I'm right in what I'm going to say, but I could be reasonably confident that if someone's arrested after that string of 10 offences, they're only charged with 3 of them, but that offending stops. It's probably a fair guess that that person was responsible for the other 7 as well. But they may never get charged and sent to court for those if there isn't the evidence to present in court. And the rules around offences being taken into account are nowhere near what they used to be some time ago. So the important thing is actually preventing it in the first place. And if you take residential burglaries, for example, in Bracknell, as the presentation shows, the solve rate is down, but actually the number of offences is down by 20%. And I'd much rather be talking to you about 20% less people being burgled in Bracknell than the number of cases that actually end up going to court in a very complex system. The big headline is less people have been victims of a really impactful crime in Bracknell this year than last year, and that's a really good result.
And I think that's why I really hate those headline figures, really, because the reason why policing, despite all the pressures we face, feels winnable is that we still have a very small number of people committing the vast majority of crime in a very small number of locations. And by being laser-like where we put our resources, we can still have an impact. And as I say, by taking an organised crime group, a burglary group out the streets, we're just taking one at the moment. We're going to solve 100 burglaries. They probably did 300 actually across the whole of the south of England. So I think I fully agree with Matthew. It's all about prevention in the first place and being laser-like and taking the right people off the streets. And hopefully, if we can get them to court quick enough, the judiciary will give them long sentences.
Right, thank you. Councillor Templeton, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, everybody, for coming. My question's a bit parochial, really, after all the other ones that have gone on, but it's really something that is a bone of contention for a lot of residents in Bracknell Forest. It's about e-bikes and e-scooters. A report in the Bracknell News stated that improving e-scooter safety was one of your priorities. These are legal to buy, illegal to ride on public paths and highways. They're silent, yet can reach speeds of 50 miles an hour. The report stated that you sometimes warn the rider and sometimes seize the scooter. What determines the different responses? And I've been asked by a resident to say, what do you do when the scooter is seized? Do you give it back?
Yes, so probably a year ago, I'm talking about my mailbag. I get very little letters nowadays, so please rewrite to me if you wish. But
they write to me instead.
Yeah, okay. But the e-scooters was a real big issue. We weren't doing a great deal. I am frustrated about this. This is every city, town in the Western world is struggling with this, what to do about e-scooters. The legislation isn't there. The government are going to have to make a decision on this. Somebody in my office said this morning his son has asked for an e-scooter for his birthday. He didn't know they were illegal because he lives in Oxford and there are perfectly council-run e-scooters driving around the streets that are perfectly legal. So I think there is some confusion that we don't necessarily have the tactics and powers that we need. So it's down to the individual officer to decide what's the right thing to do. And I recently, was on patrol, came across a young person. I thought, I'm going to see the scooter and take his parents to court for no insurance. I spoke to the young lad. It just didn't seem the right thing to do. It was over-criminalising a young... So I took him home with his parents, with the e-scooter, and gave him a warning. So it's not all about always seizing the scooter, albeit we see 600 this year. And in the summer, we're going to have a focus on our neighbourhood officers in town centres and cities, and we are moving to taking that discretion away from officers and seizing everything. But it's not straightforward, because the health and safety advice is we can't transport them in our vehicles, we can't store them at police stations because of the fire risk. So it is what sounds like on one level, a really simple issue. It's illegal. Why do we take them off the streets? It's a bit more nuanced and complex. But we are going to move to seizing much more, hopefully, and we are going to be taking, sadly, more scooters off the streets. But actually, hopefully, that'll have a deterrent effect and an educational aspect around. Parents just need to stop buying e-scooters for their children. So we see 600 last year. We're going to be seizing a lot more in the coming months. Steve, do you want to say anything specifically about?
I mean, just to add to that, really. I mean, there is a difference sometimes between a child riding an e-scooter given it as a gift by a parent and the criminal use of e-bikes. For those of you that spend time in Slough or Reading, you'll have seen the Sur-on bikes, which can reach frightening speeds, and the way they're used. There's a bit where we are more effective at tackling the criminal use of e-bikes that are used for drug dealing and such like. So.
We're in a conversation with a local college who think they can design a course for us, for our officers, to be able to immediately recognise an e-bike. Like Steve said, we have more problems with e-bikes than e-scooters. Recognise if they've been modified. If they've been modified, it makes them illegal immediately, and we can seize them, so we can seize more of these. But also be able to make e-scooters and e-bikes safe from a battery perspective to reduce the risk of fire. So we're developing a course with a local college, a further education college, and that could be a game changer, and being able to seize a lot more, store them safely, and take more off the streets.
Right, thank you. I would like to thank all of you for coming along tonight and for your very interesting, thought-provoking presentation. And also for the people who've asked very thoughtful questions and the answers you have given them. And we will look forward to seeing you in June, maybe online, I'm not sure which. There, we'll think of some more questions for you. Thank you very much. We now come to the report of the Cabinet, at agenda item 6. Would Councillor Templeton like to present her cabinet report? Are you coming to the lectern to do it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have had one cabinet meeting. It was extremely long, about 18 items, but it was on March the 18th. For children and young people, we considered the transition, we looked at the Education and the Skills Overview and Scrutiny Panel's report on the transition from education to employment. And we approved the recommendations, which included developing a head teachers and local skills partner forum, and we asked if they could include a representative from Bracknell and Wokingham College in this forum so we could find out what was needed for and what was offered as far as apprenticeships were concerned. It also included increasing engagement with local companies to provide more apprenticeships and ensuring schools maintain an up-to-date register of companies offering work experience. The corporate parenting strategy, the Cabinet approved the corporate parenting strategy 2025 to 28 and the action plan for the consultation. This council has a responsibility to act for every child looked after, and every single member of us as a councillor is a corporate parent. The strategy outlines 10 pledges focused on communication, bullying, safety, education and training, and mental and physical well-being. The Cabinet will consider a revised version in June 2025, if necessary, following the public consultation. We noted the improvements made after the 6th review meeting with the Department for Education and NHS England on the update on SEND, the progress made on delivering the Safety Valve programme, and the progress made on Special Education Needs Service. Notable improvements include opening of the new specialist provision, launch of the transition services, participation in the Partnership for Inclusion of Neurodiversity in Schools project, and delivery of training by the virtual school. The Planning, Transport and Countryside, for this we looked at the Local Development Scheme 2024 to 27, and the Cabinet approved the Local Development Scheme 2025, which will be adopted from 18th of March 25 and come into effect on the 26th of March 2025. The scheme aims to provide clarity for residents, businesses and developers about the Council's intention on producing planning policies and guidance. We also looked at the adoption of the Housing Supplementary Document, and we approved this document. It provides important and up-to-date planning guidance to those who submit and determine planning applications. For the Council's strategy in climate change, we approved the final climate, this was a special thing for me, we approved the final climate change strategy and resource plan. We noted the public feedback on the climate change strategy 25 to 30 and recommended that Council approve the strategy. We'll be moving this later. The Cabinet approved the Climate Change Phase 1 delivery plan, subject to the Council's overall approval. The strategy outlines plans to achieve net zero emissions as near as possible to 2030. It includes initiatives to reduce greenhouse gas emission, support climate adaptation, encourage growth in the green economy, which supports knowledge, access to finance, and delivery of green skilled activities. In the service plans from 2025-26, the Cabinet endorsed a new departmental service plan content for 25-26 and noted what each directorate had committed to. 124 actions have been identified to take place during the next financial year across all 19 goals. Plans will be published on the council website and monitored through the council plan overview report. The council overview report for Q3, we've noticed the performance of the council in this period, which was from October 2024 to December 2024. At the end of Q3, 64 actions were green, 25 actions were amber, 5 actions were red. The progress against performance and contextual indicators was very positive. 69 indicators, 80% were green, 7% were amber, 12% were red. 1 indicator was unavailable. Demolition of the High Street car park and relocation strategy for Market Street tenants. The Cabinet approved the award of a demolition contract for the High Street car park building to the Bracknell Forest Cambion Partnership. The Council received 2.2 million in funding from One Public Estate for this work as part of the Brownfield Site Release Fund. The demolition contract had to be awarded in March 2025 to get this money, and the vacant possession must be achieved in December 2025. Support is being offered to tenants to relocate before December 2025, and this support will continue for the rest of the year until that date is reached. For the environment, communities and housing, we have a draft Equality Objectives 2025-29. The Cabinet approved a public consultation of the draft Equality Objectives for 25-29 for a 6-week period starting on the 24th of March. Finalised objectives will be presented in July 2025. The Council must publish 1 or more equality objectives every 4 years. These outlines our strategy for advancing equality of opportunity and demonstrate the areas where we are lacking in equality. The objectives include delivering inclusive, accessible and responsive services, knowing Bracknell Forest communities, actively collaborating and engaging with communities, and being an inclusive employer. For finance and corporate improvement, the Cabinet approved the proposed discretionary rates relief policy to take effect from April 1st, 2025 for new applicants and from April 26 for existing recipients. Registered charities were previously granted an automatic 20% discretionary business rates relief on top of the government's 80% relief granted to charitable organisations. This cost the Council £117,000 a year. Other councils apply restriction to this. The decision was called in on the 20th of March 2025. The Overview and Scrutiny Commission reviewed the decision in an extraordinary meeting on April 4th, 2025 and voted to take no further action. For economy and regeneration, the Electrical Safety System Services and Maintenance Contract renewal, the Cabinet approved the strategic procurement plan for a single organisation to carry out routine and responsive servicing and maintenance of electrical systems across a range of buildings. A 10-year tender was approved, starting with a fixed cost for the first 3 years and following for 7 optional extensions. The contract ensures the Council has an effective and reliable contractor in place, ensuring the health and safety of occupants. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton. Do we have any questions for Councillor Templeton? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the demolition of the High Street car park and the relocation strategy for Market Street tenants, we heard at this council a few months ago a petition from one of the tenants that was referred to the Cabinet. I was just wondering if there's any update from the Cabinet on that matter and the specific support being provided to tenants who are being displaced as part of this.
I know that they are still supporting with them and still looking for position in the rates within the lexicon are too high for them, and so there's still work going on, and certainly the cabinet member for the Councillor Bidwell could reply to this probably, but certainly there is support being given to them because they came with a petition, and it is a really important part of there. And I think nobody really wants to lose that for them, to the acoustic couch. Nobody wants to lose them within Bracknell Town Centre because they are really valued by so many residents.
Right, thank
Would you
you.
like me to add to that?
Councillor Bidwell.
Yeah, it's very very difficult situation. Most of the tenants have been relocated, but we have to understand that the tenants have a vast variety of different agreements with the council, and those that are pretty copper-bottomed have been relocated. The relationship with the acoustic couch was quite a different arrangement. That said, it's difficult to find them a similar alternative location. There have been some near misses. We can't share those, but I can assure you that we are looking constantly for an alternative.
Right, thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to the climate change strategy and delivery plan, I understand the government's target for net zero is about 2040, and there's been a lot of question about whether that's achievable from economists and engineers. What evidence have you taken from people who know what they're talking about in terms of deliverability, engineering, the ability of the grid to support this, in choosing a date of 2030 for the target for net zero for Bracknell Forest, or did you just pull it out of your imagination?
Thank you for your confidence, Councillor Harrison. We actually did do quite a lot of research about this, and 2040 we believe is too late. And I think the actual wording is, as you will realise, we've said it before, as near 2030 as possible. This is ambitious. We want to actually move this quite forward as fast as we can, and we're actually working really hard with across Bracknell Forest. A lot of organisations are working with us, a lot of people, lots of parish councils, lots of other people are working for us to make this happen as fast as possible. We may not reach that target, but if we keep putting it back, we don't want people to think it's not going to be tomorrow, we don't have to worry. We want to push it forward as much because it is an emergency, and the more you have an emergency that we need action, the more we can actually inspire people to get there and do it, rather than say, don't worry, it'll happen in time, because it won't. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there more questions? Sorry, Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the car park, it is sad to see that no venue has been found for the acoustic couch, because it is a vital community and music venue, and I'm really happy to see that support will continue. Will it be possible to continue supporting them after December 25?
No. No, we're working obviously very hard to try and find a relocation. It's quite a unique ask, as you can probably understand. You know, not only is it a size issue, because then you need to have a capacity, which we haven't got. There are properties that are out of the town centre that were being looked at, but I don't think they would be suitable for the acoustic couch. That said, there is a sort of a bit of a jigsaw puzzle coming together with all other parts of the properties that are owned within the town centre, people moving around there as well. So it's not over yet, but it's a challenge, I can assure you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions in the room? Oh, Councillor Watts, your hand was up again.
Not a question exactly, but I just wanted to commend Mary Templeton on having the 2030 date, because, I mean, as she said, it is urgent, and if we had a 2040 a date, then, you know, people will sort of throw it on the back bench, not worry about it. And I would encourage any councillor to come to the summit, which happens twice a year, and it's really, what's the word I'm looking for? Encouraging to see. and the people who go there are really fantastic, and more inventions are being schemed up with students and people all over the planet all the time. I think we can certainly make some headway there. So thank you for your efforts.
Right. Thank you. Are there any more questions in the room? Deputy Mayor, are there any questions online?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now come to the recommendation on page 35 of the agenda report relating to the climate change strategy 2025-2030. Does any councillor have any further questions of the leader, Councillor Templeton, on climate change strategy 2025 to 2030? No?
Can I move it, Madam Mayor?
Deputy Mayor, are there any questions online?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Right. So, Councillor Templeton, would you like to move the recommendation?
I would very much like to move this recommendation to adapt the Climate Change Strategy and Delivery Plan. The new strategy is aligned to the current council motion, which was passed in September 23, and responds to the climate emergency to reach net zero by 2030 or as close to that time as possible. The strategy is accompanied by a delivery plan for 25-26. The strategy outlines the Council's proposed approach to climate change issues for the next 4 to 5 years. While its primary aim is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions directly attributed to the Council's own activities, there are also initiatives aimed at encouraging the same for the Borough too, which provides 98% of those emissions. The strategy is aspirational in structure. The strategy has been drafted based on consultation with the public, plus councillors and officer groups. Further consultation events included the Council's working group attached to the Joint Climate Action Board on the 19th December, an officers' event on the 7th of January, an overview and scrutiny commission session on the 9th of January, and an online event for the wider public on the 13th of January. We needed an uplift on the old strategy, and this excellent strategy, I would like to thank Seb Wright for all his enthusiasm and his commitment in putting together at the requests of many of the councillors who worked on a sort of outline of what we would like, having looked at all the climate strategies from their neighbouring communities. I would like to move this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hafferty, would you like to second this?
Yeah, Adrian Hafferty, happy to second, very happy to second, thanks.
Right. We now move to debate this motion. Do you wish to say anything more, Councillor Templeton, in favour of it?
Not yet, thank you.
Councillor Hafferty, would you like to speak to this motion now or later?
I'll reserve, please.
Reserve, thank you. Right, are there any people in the room, any councillors who wish to speak? Right. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm going to find it very difficult to support this because, as the Leader of the Council says, this is aspirational, which basically means it's virtue signalling. It's not realistic. And I think we owe a duty of candour and honesty to our public. If we're promising we're going to do something or trying to give the impression that we're going to do that, it actually has to be realistically achievable. I don't believe that's the case. We had a budget debate some time ago, and this is a really kind of expensive plan. We're putting quite a lot into the budget when our other services are being squeezed. Now, when the council has to make difficult decisions, I think spending money on conferences, on talking and talking and talking, is not a good use of our taxpayers' money. We have choices to make. So, in the name of honesty, I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Gilby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the leader mentioned, there was a motion to declare a climate emergency supported by every group in this chamber. Since then, we've acted on that motion. As long as I live, I believe the role that I have played, albeit small, in the development of this strategy will be one of the proudest moments of my life. Some may question that this is aspirational. I have to question then if all members have read this strategy, because it is full of detail. The passion that has gone into this strategy, the ambition, the targets. This isn't a wishy-washy document. This isn't a document that's talking the talk, it's walking the walk. And it's one of the proudest documents I've had the pleasure of partaking in its development for. And what I had hoped from that motion was that all parties here could see this as an issue beyond politics, because we all supported that motion. An emergency is not something that can be deferred. An emergency has to be tackled now. But perhaps then it isn't surprising that I saw a post on a certain party's social media account before this meeting questioning money spent on climate change. Clearly some had decided to come into this meeting to make a political game of this issue. And I wonder what residents listening in will think of that. This is an issue beyond partisanship. This is an issue we should all get behind. And perhaps it's no great mystery why some would make a game of this. And if I may, I might offer some free advice to the members on the second row. And I say this directly. You cannot out-reform reform. They won't believe it. They will see through it. And you will lose that coalition of voters that has sustained you for all these years. I'd ask you to think about this. Don't make a game of a serious issue. It's beyond politics. It's beyond partisanship. I hope we can get back together to the unity that we saw early on in this council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Madam Mayor, there's always going to be, how can I say, a difference of opinion, and there is in parties. I don't think the Conservative view, if I may say so, is as strong as Guy Gilby said. Everyone has their view. And if I may say so, I started climate change in this building by persuading the then leader and the deputy leader for us to have a committee and for us to start this journey. Now, of course, aspirations are aspirations. We have many aspirations in this council, not only climate change, but loads of other things. And we try and do our best. But the point is, it's about leadership, Madam Mayor. And Mary Temperton, Councillor Temperton, has shown very strong leadership in this regard. And I personally think, unless we do this and we commit ourselves to doing this, we'll never achieve it, frankly, because it is a very difficult thing to do. It's not just this council. It's the whole of the community that has to play its part. And that's really important to get over to our residents. Of course there will be dissent. Of course people will start saying, why are you spending this money? I don't think they are spending a lot of money on going to conferences, actually, to be honest with you. Not from what I can see, having read it and also helped to write it. I don't want to prolong this, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having aspirations for 2030, because I think loads of northern European countries have gone further than this, actually. And if you look at some of the northern European countries, particularly Denmark and Sweden, they've made great industries out of green energy, and they're making considerable money. So let's join that, let's go forward on that, and let's make money for our residents, as well as constantly thinking that this will never be achieved. If you really want to achieve something, achieve it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try and keep it brief. I just want to second Councillor Gilby's excellent points about the level of detail in the plan and its ambition and scope. And I, for one, am particularly excited by the potential it presents for developing the green economy in Bracknell Forest and measures related to climate adaptation as well. In terms of arguments over aspiration and achievement, I think in any case with a climate emergency, the best time to act is yesterday, and the second best time is right now. So I'd like to put on record kind of my respect and admiration for Councillor Templeton and councillors across the aisle, Hafferty, Councillor Virgo, for continually fighting and championing the need to tackle climate change. And I'm proud and hopeful that nearly every group will put on a united front. I hope there'll be a united front across the council. But I'm sure that, the council officers that worked on this as well have put in like hours and hours, weeks and weeks, months and months, years of work on this. So I think it's important that we show it the respect it deserves and work hard in achieving the rightfully ambitious targets that it sets for us as a local authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, please.
Many thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gilby, I'm impressed with your very passionate speech, and I'm really glad that this is the best document you've ever done. But can I just remind you, please, sir, of your cabinet membership, Countryside, and under your stewardship, sir, you've allowed the felling of all those trees on Beaufort Park. Can you please tell us that will never happen again under your stewardship, under your remit as a cabinet member for Countryside?
I would like to reply to that. Oh, sorry, you spoke. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to congratulate Mary Templeton and everyone involved in the climate strategy. I think it's fantastic. I think you need to think about what is the cost of doing nothing. And we have a great example of that from Cameron's coalition government, where he decided to cut the green, and I'm not going to use the word in the chamber, but you all know what he said, cut the green. And that was with regards to house building and house legislation and insulation. So in the building from 2015 onwards, we saw very few houses with solar panels. We didn't see them with the right insulation. And research came out last year to show that has cost an average household £1,000 a year. So the cost of doing nothing is not only affecting future generations, but it is actually affecting the pockets of our residents. So I completely support this, and I think it's shameful to think that we shouldn't be doing anything about it. So thank you.
Right, thank you. Is there anyone? Councillor McLean, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been running roughshod through the environment since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. I've always believed that we are merely temporary custodians of our countryside and our planet. And we're now paying the heavy price for the exploitation of its natural resources that we've seen over very many years. I have no hesitation in supporting this plan because I think it's going some way to righting the wrongs of many, many years. It is aspirational, and ultimately you, as the administration, will be judged on this plan because you are proposing it. We are supporting it. Some individuals may have strong views either way. I know that the council leader has a very strong view about climate change. Other members may disagree. I think each of us as individuals have to recognise what our own beliefs are in this regard and vote accordingly. But I have no hesitation in supporting it. But ultimately, you will be judged on how well you deliver this plan. We in the Conservative group will judge you and our residents will judge you. We will support you, we will encourage you, we will help you, but it's your plan. You own it, you need to deliver it for our residents. And just a final point on Councillor Gilby, who decided to bring party politics into this, which I thought was perhaps unhelpful, because we sit here, we've listened to the Labour Party hector and harangue members of the public about what defines a woman. So I'm not sure, Councillor Gilby, you're the right person or the right political party to hector us about how we should think about climate change. I know what we're doing is right. Other people may not agree, but let's not hector people if they don't agree, because we're all entitled to our own views.
Right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Councillor Karim.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I'd like to commend Councillor Virgo, not only for his great support through this process of working towards having a strong policy for climate change, but also for his dignity and politeness during this discussion. I think it's wonderful that, you know, we have an administration that not only plans, but also aspires to have a better future for not only current, but also future residents and children who live in the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Sorry, Deputy Mayor, is there anyone online who would like to speak?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hafferty, would you like to speak now?
Please, yes. Thank you, Mayor. So back in September 2023, we all unanimously declared our climate and biodiversity emergency. And one strand of that was to review, broaden and accelerate our climate change strategy to commit to achieve net zero emissions as close to 2030 as possible. As has already been mentioned, that was a unanimous decision. We all agreed to that date. This strategy we're approving tonight is the culmination of that strand. It is a significant rewrite of what we had previously, and this time provides real teeth, shows real action, and has an exceptionally solid delivery plan to achieve the needed climate action. We Greens would like to thank the leader for an open and collaborative cross-party approach in developing this strategy. We had Conservatives along at those sessions, and the issues Councillor Harrison's mentioned was not brought up then. They did not object to the close as 2030 date then. I'm glad that the majority of Conservatives are supporting this. Along with the Council's staff, all of us councillors have had good opportunities to feed into this process and have had our say. We have taken the draft strategy out to the residents and local organisations, and with over 100 responses, we now have the final climate strategy and delivery plan that is also strongly supported by the community. This strategy is what our residents have asked for, and many of them are giving their time freely to help implement it. We Greens fully approve this strategy, and I thank the climate officers for all their hard work. It ticks off one part of what we had all asked for in our 2023 emergency declaration. Councillor McLean is right in saying that this may be the leader's strategy, but he's wrong in saying that it's down to us to own it. The climate change is such an urgent issue that everyone needs to address, and so everyone in their own right has to do something, do their part in this battle against it. So as far as this strategy goes, we completely support it, and we trust all the councillors here will also approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Climate change is the greatest challenge that we and future generations face. That is why I included it in my portfolio as leader of Bracknell Forest Council, and I'm prepared to stand, and I am standing, to be judged on it. I will readily own this strategy, although I didn't put it all together. It was a joint effort, but I'll do everything in my power to deliver it in the years we've got before 2030 or as near there as possible. This is a global issue, but in Bracknell Forest must act to ensure our diversity, food supply, water systems, wildfires, health and economy are not endangered. Action and behaviour change is needed to mitigate the crisis, but it's also promised a more secure future with cheaper energy, clean air, new jobs and a flourishing natural environment. This new climate change strategy reflects the Council's commitment and ambition to make the necessary changes. It outlines and plans and actions, it's full of actions, to achieve net zero by as near 2030 as possible, and I'm very proud to move this recommendation.
Thank you. The recommendation is set out on the screen. It is now time to vote on it. So if you are in favour, those present in the chamber, if you are in favour of this, can you raise your hands, please? Right. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Right. Sorry, 33-4, and 1 abstention. So the motion is carried. We now move on to item 7, which is questions submitted under Council Procedure Rule 10. We have received notice of 6 questions which have been set out in section 7 of your at the beginning of your agenda and will be displayed on screen. The response from the relevant Cabinet member to the question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. Both the question and the response will be taken as read. Councillors can only ask one supplementary question, which should arise directly from the published response, and to be succinct. The first question is from Councillor Harrison to Councillor Temperton, Leader of the Cabinet, Member for Council Strategy and Climate Change. Councillor, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank the leader for her extensive response there. But there's something I'd like clarification on, because the Local Government Association and the Centre for Government and Scrutiny's Good Scrutiny Guide and the guidance that they've given place emphasis on the benefits to the council of independent scrutiny, councillors' right to information, and in previous councils, the scrutiny function has been jealously guarded as independent from the executive and political party whip. However, one of your first actions was to make the Labour, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the chairman of the chair of the Scrutiny Commission actually the Labour whip? And doesn't that compromise and actually undermine the integrity of the entire scrutiny process and undermine transparency and independence?
Thank you. It's not the answer to the question. I've got pages here expecting the... So now I'll quickly think of the... According to the standing orders on the Labour Party, we can have the whip and the leader of the Overview and Scrutiny can be the same person. And it is true in the Labour group, the whip is the same person as the chairman as the Overview and Scrutiny. Now, I have not seen that as an issue at all, and I have not seen it as compromising any of the decisions that that chairman has made as the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. So therefore, I have not seen it as an issue, so therefore I would not condemn it.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. The second question is from Councillor McLean to Councillor Bailey. I'm sure you've all read the question and the response. Would you like to ask a supplementary question on that question? On that response, rather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It may shock members to hear that I do have a supplementary, but I'd like to thank Councillor Bailey for his answer to my initial question. My supplementary is quite simple. when will Councillor Bailey accept political responsibility for this?
Can I thank Councillor McLean for his supplementary? I do accept part responsibility for what's been going on because I'm the one charged with political oversight, and that's why in this response one of the things that I'm going to be doing is ensure that political oversight is supercharged. And you'll see from the response there are several angles that I'm going to be tackling to do just that, including the appointment of an executive panel to work with me, advisory panel to work with me. We're in the process of setting up the draft terms of reference because we have to be careful we don't blur scrutiny with actual doing my cabinet role. But we're confident we can do that, and that way the party leaders will share with me, I will share with them rather, every stage of our journey over the next 2 years. I'm confident because of the advice that I've received from all sorts of places that I'm now focused, determined, energised to deliver. This was a disappointing no question about it, and I've apologised repeatedly for that, but I'm even more determined to make sure we get it right for the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. The third question is from Councillor Gore to Councillor Jeffries, Cabinet Member for Leisure, Culture, Public Protection and Democracy. Having read the response, Councillor Gore, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I'd like to thank Councillor Jeffries for his honest and frank response, and I don't have a supplementary question tonight for him, but I would like to take Councillor Jeffries up on his offer to look at specific instances of communication problems, and I hope that that invitation would be extended to all members present.
Right, thank you. So,
thank you, Madam Mayor,
yes.
And thank you, Councillor Glow. And I will extend that to everybody in the room and also wider out to members of the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth question is from Councillor Zarudin. Councillor Bailey, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Having read the response, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bailey, for your detailed answer. I welcome the proposal to establish an advisory panel. However, could the Cabinet Member confirm that the panel's recommendations will be given due and proper consideration? In particularly in the instances where the recommendations of the advisory panel cannot be implemented, will the Cabinet Member commit to sharing any such disagreements or deviations to the Council? And in the interest of transparency and ensuring all elected members are kept informed, will the Cabinet Member also make the business of this panel available to the wider Council? Thank you.
Can I thank the Councillor for his question? As I said earlier, I'm absolutely determined to be open, candid about this because this is bigger than one political party. It's a problem affecting the whole of Bracknell, and I'm determined that we'll work together to share the shared talents that we have to bring about the solution that we all want. So nothing to hide at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. The fifth question is from Councillor Smith to Councillor Bailey, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Councillor Smith, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I will. Last year, this council was placed in a position where we were given very little choice but to engage in the government's controversial safety valve scheme. The safety valve agreement sees the DfE making a significant raid on this council's financial reserves in return for upfront financial support to enable us to implement critical improvements to our SEND provision and get our higher needs block deficit back under control. Provision of the new SEND school was supposed to be part of this arrangement. If the DfE are no longer holding up their end of that bargain by delaying the progress on the new SEND school, and particularly in consideration of significant additional costs accrued to this council as a consequence, as noted in the Cabinet Member's separate response to the question raised by Councillor Robertson, will the Cabinet be reaching out to the DfE and or lobbying our Member of Parliament to seek any renegotiation of the terms of the safety valve agreement?
May I thank Councillor Smith for his question? Yes, very aware of the background to this. We are lobbying virtually on a daily basis with the DFE to get consent given urgently for the new school in Bucklers Park. It was premised on that, and we're determined to work towards that. But that's not to say we're going to be complacent or not think about other options, because we are constantly looking at the remains of this school estate, and we will, if we need to find other places to find that provision that is so needed. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Now, the sixth question is also to Councillor Bailey, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. He's from Councillor Robertson. Thank you. Councillor, would you like to ask one supplementary question?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I thank Councillor Bailey for his answer. The delay in delivering this much-needed school is going to have consequences for SEND pupils. As the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, could you please set out how you are going to ensure the school is urgently delivered? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's an important question, and I do need to respond to that. I promise you that I will set out, as soon as I have full details of our plan. It's, as I said previously in the earlier question, it's something that we need to resolve sooner rather than later, but we're covering all options. And but I'll get back to you in due course on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that is all the questions we have, but we have received a motion submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11 of the Constitution, which set out at item 8 at the beginning of your agenda. The motion, moved and seconded, and then we will move into debate. You will be able to speak once for no longer than 5 minutes. Councillors in the room will be invited to speak first. The mover of the motion will have the right to reply before a vote is taken. So, Councillor McLean, would you like to propose your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose this motion, which I hope isn't going to prove to be controversial. This motion has been tabled, and it's about maintaining good relations with our contractors, valuing our staff, and appreciating our residents who do so much and work so hard to recycle. The Council has a proven record of working hard to ensure the issue of equal pay never became an issue of the magnitude that we've seen in other local authorities. But circumstances change, and we must always strive to ensure that paying conditions are right for the jobs we employ people to do, and our residents should expect no less than that. However, this motion is really about appreciating what our stakeholders do and what we need to do to keep Bracknell Forest the desirable place it is for our residents and for visitors. Bracknell has been named the best place to live and work in the South East, if you believe the report in today's Bracknell News. This requires constant effort to keep the town centre, our neighbourhood centres, and our towns and parishes clean and tidy. We all know what happens if you start to allow neglect to creep in with one broken window, one bin that's overfull that never seems to be emptied. Having pride in our communities will keep them green and clean. And by supporting this motion, this is the message that will echo from this council chamber to local people, local businesses, and those who visit our borough. So therefore, I would urge you to support this motion to show our appreciation and thanks to our staff, local business owners, our contractors, and residents, so that we can all keep the pride in Bracknell Forest, and to make sure that working with our residents and other stakeholders, we keep Bracknell green and clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Councillor Gore, would you like to second that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to second it. I would also like to speak now.
Speak now. Fine. Thank you.
So I'm delighted to second this motion because I've long held the belief that the Waste and Recycling Department provides an excellent service in all areas. From the man, women on the street, to those manning the office, to the managers and director, it's very clear that everyone has great pride in their jobs. This is shown in the following ways: the efficient service provided week in and week out, the ability to adapt to changes with minimal disruption, the immediate and thorough response to any queries raised, the maintaining of timelines given for fixing broken bins and lost bins and recycling initiatives. In short, they do what they say they are going to do, which is fantastic. Communication to residents is well thought out, whether it be collection day times, changes in service, or differing collections. This is, in my opinion, one of the best run council services, and we don't often get the opportunity to publicly say thank you. So thank you to all the team involved in keeping Bracknell Forest Borough clean. We really appreciate your hard work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the room like to speak? Councillor Frost, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would like to take the opportunity to add to what Councillors McLean and Gore have said about thanking all of the waste contractors, council officials, elected members and residents of Bracknell Forest for everything that goes on to keep our borough clean and green, and for having it recognised as well as one of the best places to live, if not the best place to live in the South East as well. And if I would like to seek some clarification as well, because I think I'm on record from when we had our special council meeting to approve the budget in February of taking pride in our brilliant town centre. But I sense a kind of change in the mood of the row behind, because I believe it was at the special meeting to approve the budget that they introduced a motion, despite professing to be thankful of everything that goes on to be clean and green, a motion aimed at undermining the work done to tackle the issue of climate change and in fact gutting the funds available for that purpose as well. And it was in that meeting as well, you think, well, why would they say one thing and do another? There must be a very good reason. I'm sure that wasn't their intention. And of course, they brought up that the money should be better spent in extra work to keep the council-owned areas of the lexicon clean and tidy. And far from the pride that they speak of now, and the thanks to the contractors and everyone who does the work, I think we had quite vivid imagery of Bracknell as a rubbish-infested and rat-infested, lawless hellscape. It's like something out of a Mad Max movie. I didn't quite recognise it at the time, and I certainly don't recognise it now. And I'm quite glad that in the few weeks since that special budget meeting, either the Conservative group believes we have quite short memories, and I'm sure that's not the intention or the case, or in the last few weeks, the Labour-run Bracknell Forest has brilliantly got rid of the rubbish and rat infestation that they were speaking of then, to end up having the green and pleasant land out of more like Jerusalem, I suppose. So I'm glad that their opinion has changed since then. But again, yes, I would like to, despite my flippancy for the rows behind, and I do apologise for that, I do echo their respect and thanks to the contractors and everyone who works to keep things green and tidy. And I take huge pride in being able to call Bracknell Forest my home. And I think, unless the rubbish was swept up as the winds of political opportunism changed. I don't know why Birmingham is catching random strays here as well in terms of calling it out. I don't know why I want to start picking fights with England's second city on St George's Day as well. But otherwise, yeah, I'm very happy to support the motion to thank everyone for keeping Bracknell a clean and green place to live, and hopefully, the row behind can kind of work out the muddled view I think we've been hearing, especially tonight, on where they stand on the importance of tackling climate change. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to speak absolutely in support of this motion, moved by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Gore. Firstly, let me wholeheartedly commend the council staff and our waste management contractors, particularly sewers, whose ongoing professionalism and dedication ensure that our borough continues to benefit from reliable and efficient waste services. I also want to give recognition and thanks to our residents, whose consistent and responsible recycling plays a crucial role in sustaining our borough's environmental health. However, as we celebrate these accomplishments, it's important to acknowledge the careful vigilance needed in the face of evolving national and local challenges. Waste management remains a major public focus, not least because it significantly impacts our residents' day-to-day lives, but it also influences their overall satisfaction with council performance. In light of recent national events, including the difficulties experienced in Birmingham, we must tread carefully. We cannot take for granted the stability we currently enjoy. It's imperative that we remain alert and proactive, particularly as we navigate forthcoming changes mandated by the Environment Act and adjustments related to other associated services. Our continued success relies heavily upon foresight, flexibility and responsiveness to the emerging needs of our community. We are also mindful of discussions occurring nationally around equal pay and fair treatment within the waste management sector. Although negotiations that affect Bracknell Forest are managed directly by our contractors, we maintain diligent oversight, ensuring fairness and respect remain core principles of our service delivery. Ultimately, our goal is sustained excellence, a standard defined by fairness, sustainability and quality of service. Let's remain united in our commitment to continuously improve, actively engage our residents and responsibly manage our resources, ensuring Bracknell Forest remains a model borough for effective and fair public service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purnell. Councillor Howison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think Councillor Purnell has talked a lot of sense there. I'd like to add my congratulations to and thanks to the contractors who are working on the waste contract that collect the household waste and run the recycling centre and all of that stuff. The member in front of me, I think, is slightly confused about which contracts are which, because when we were talking about the town centre cleaning contract, that's a different contract. That's something that is sized according to a specification from the council, and it was this Labour Council that decided to reduce the cleaning schedule in the town centre. And we have some documentary evidence now of the rubbish piling up in the streets on a Saturday when there are a lot of people there. I think it gives a bad impression. Look out for that in the newspapers in the near future. You've got something to look forward to there. I'd also like to pay tribute, and this might sound a bit surprising, but to the pragmatism of the trade unions in Bracknell Forest, who have over many years been quite reasonable in negotiations. They stick up for their members, but they're quite reasonable in negotiations. They're not doing anything, I believe, out of militancy, and I think we can thank them for that as well, and the members that they represent.
Thank you, Councillor Howison. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Right, Councillor Watts. I'll see you then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to lost my train of thought here. I would also like to commend all the staff that help us keep our town so clear. I have a local group in my road where we remind each other which bins go out every week. We share bin space. When one bin's full, somebody else has space, and we collect litter together. If anybody sees any litter in their space, I'd recommend getting together. It's a very good communal event. You make friends, and coming into the hotter / colder / snowy / sunny again months, I recommend keeping a box of ice lollies for your local bin men. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Watts. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Councillor Temperton.
Yeah, I think we all would acknowledge that our workforce and contractors are indeed superb and should be thanked and applauded and recognised by us all. Just today, I read in the Bracknell News and they publicised that following the Easter holiday weekend, the sewage crew will work on Saturday next April the 26th to ensure collections turn to normal next week, which is pretty amazing to then go out and do another day just so that everybody gets their bins collected on the day they're expecting. Our residents too have responded superbly to recycling, including food waste. We can always do better, and this is a cry for help really, because we would save a lot more money if we all managed to put the right thing in the right bin, but we're out there trying to work on that. We've got several things coming up, like simpler recycling, no longer being able to landfill, no longer being able to burn. So things are coming on board which are going to be challenging, but that's what makes this job so interesting and worthwhile. But nobody can be complacent. I support this motion's recognition of all who do so much to keep our borough green and clean, and we really do need to appreciate all the workers and their commitment. So I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. Is there anyone else in the room before I go to people online? Right, Deputy Mayor, is there
questions
anyone?
online, Madam Mayor? No.
Thank you. In that case, Councillor McLean, would you wish to sum up?
Yes, and I'm sure members will be delighted to know, given the hour, that I'll do so briefly. I'm particularly grateful to Councillor Pennell for what I thought was a thoughtful, considered and appropriate response to this motion, because she quite rightly highlighted the challenges facing this council in terms of environmental impact but also employment that we face in order to keep the borough green and clean. I'm also grateful to the other members who've spoken in support of the motion. I started out by saying this wasn't going to be controversial because I hoped it wasn't going to be controversial. And I could have gone off on some sort of mad, rabid tirade about party politics and Birmingham and everything else. But I chose not to do so because it's not about party politics. This is about thanking the people who work so hard to keep the borough as attractive a place to live and work as it is. So that's why I was a bit disappointed by Councillor Frost's contribution when he was talking about Mad Max dystopia. And I could have made the point, yes, if you want to talk about Mad Max dystopia and rubbish, yes, look at what the residents of Birmingham have had to put up with. But I chose not to do that because it's not about that, scoring cheap party political points. And certainly asking the council to think about how it keeps the town centre green and clean, I don't think does detract from the Conservatives' view about the work that's being done on climate change, as we've made clear earlier on this evening. So I think Councillor Frost's comments were rather demeaning. They were rather detracted from what everybody else has been saying, and I don't think reflected particularly well on him. So perhaps he can reflect on that. But perhaps I can also break from convention, Madam Mayor, by concluding by saying, would it be appropriate for us to express our appreciation to our contractors, our staff and the residents by having a round of applause to commend them for everything they're doing to do what's right for Bracknell Forest? Thank you.
I think that would be quite in order. Can we wait until after? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, can we wait till we're after the vote? It's all right. The point has been made. So the motion is set out on screen. The we'll count the votes of the councillors in the room. So please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Right. Support the motion? Right. That is carried because it is unanimous. I must thank all the councillors, particularly Councillor McLean, for bringing forward this motion. We do need to remember our staff are working very hard for us. Thank you. Right. Right, in that case, thank you everyone for attending this evening. Thank you to our many visitors who've come. I forgot to welcome you at the beginning. Could everyone remain quiet and seated until a Democratic Services officer confirms that the live broadcast has ended? I declare this meeting is closed.